Andy Lou, it's almost time. We're getting there. We're getting there. We are 3 days away from free agency, maybe two and a half, depending when you want to define it. Free agency officially opens 3 p.m. Pacific, Friday the 30th. They're talking now, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic the Warriors will do better with their veteran minimums this year than they did last year. I don't know where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't do any worse. Could not do any worse than a Jermichael Green. But you couldn't do any better the year before with Otto Porter. So maybe this year they'll come somewhere in the middle. We'll talk about some of the targets that they're going to look at. But hey, do you think Draymond is on the phone with these Vetman guys? Do you think he's on the phone with some of these guys and telling them to come play for the Warriors? That's actually what I'm most curious about.
That's interesting. I don't know. Everyone seems to talk as if he is 100% returning, but then you get weekly leaks that he could go. And, the hot name was Sacramento, right? Like everyone's like, ooh, Sacramento got rid of Holmes. Now they have 30 million cap space. They could get him. And, even as of today, our guy Jake Fisher with Yahoo senior reporter notes that the buzz is Sacramento is more likely to pursue Kuzma over someone like Draymond. And that kind of makes sense to me. I just wonder. I wonder if Draymond has the market that he thinks he does out there.
It's a lot of playing around, playing the media game. I know we're all sick and tired of Damian Lillard and his charade of will he or won't he, but the moment Draymond opted out and the moment that we had to hear about all these teams that were interested in him, it does feel like lying, doesn't it? Is that what you're saying? It does feel like if there was this many suitors, we wouldn't have to hear about it every single day. And it's the same guys, and it's kind of not realistic, right? It's the Kings who I think Mark Stein has even talked about more interested in Kuzma. It's the Pistons, who I don't think is a great fit at all. That's just a young team. They're not even trying to contend. And then the third team, I think somebody threw out the Rockets, which I think is another joke. You can get better veteran players for the same price. So, do you think that Draymond is you think he's going to get squeezed a little bit? That'd be pretty funny. I would find that pretty funny.
I think squeezed is in the eye of the beholder, but I think him asking for $100 million and 3 years, $100 million, like 33, 35 million a year. I will be very surprised if he is actually in that range. That is where I'm at with Draymond. I think it's far more likely that his contract number is closer to his current contract number. But we'll see. We'll see if Rich Paul can pull a rabbit out of his hat. Like right now, if Rich Paul can get Draymond over 30 a year, tip my cap. You are officially the Scott Boras of the NBA. I just don't see the team out there who can do it because not a lot of teams have cap space, and the teams with cap space, I'm not sure they're Draymond destinations. Like people say Dallas wants Draymond. Well, Dallas doesn't have cap space, and they can tell the Warriors will trade you Maxi Kleber and Tim Hardaway Jr. as many times as they want. Like, why would Dunleavy and Lacob and those guys accept that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not. I agree. Agreed. I think the Draymond conversation is cut and dry. I think we're going to find out on Friday afternoon, maybe Friday night. He's going to be back with the Warriors. It also helps because I asked that question about Draymond and the free agents. It's a much stronger pitch to free agents, especially veteran free agents, if you can tell them, hey, it's going to be a team with Steph, Draymond, Clay, and Chris Paul, right? Like, hey, this is a winning team. But other than those guys, we have minutes, right? Looney's going to play his 20 minutes. GP2 is going to play his 15, 20 minutes. Wiggins is going to play his 30 minutes. But outside of that, like this is kind of like a 6-ish, 7-man rotation in the regular season. There are minutes to be had everywhere.
Particularly in the front court. Yeah. Particularly in the front court. If you're a front court guy, this should be where you want to go. Assuming you don't get paid big money. Sure. And so that's kind of the topic, I think, du jour of this show. Who can they get on a veteran minimum to be that front court shooter? Mike Dunleavy's talked about it. He was pretty transparent, saying we want to get a front court player. And they've done it the last 2 years in free agency. 2 years ago, obviously Otto Porter and to a lesser degree Bielitsa could not have worked out better. Last year, JaMychal Green, that's the other side of the coin. Didn't really work out, right? So the question is, who can they get this offseason? Who's their Otto or JaMychal replacement? Hopefully more Otto than JaMychal. All right, you want me to pull up a list of free agency
names? Let's go. I got some names. Yeah, let's roll.
Yeah, so the first one who's not really on this list, there's murmurings that Gallinari could get bought out. So I'm going to talk about him under the guise of if he gets bought out. What would you think of someone like Danilo Gallinari?
Is that because the thing with Gallinari is I think he was signed by the Celtics. He was got for someone that I think was going to play 20 plus minutes. I think they were going to count on him to play. Like he's not a
but then he tore his ACL, missed the entire year, and then got used as trade filler. 35 years old. I mean, it's hard to, I thought Joe Ingles looked good off an ACL tear at kind of an older age. So it's not, 100 proof that he won't be good, but it's hard to say.
I think I would take him. These are the kind of things that I look for, kind of 3 things I look for any type of vet man. I think number 1 is you're looking for winning players. You're looking for guys that do what Warriors players have done in the past. Otto and Belly worked because, they're 2 old dudes, or in Otto's case, like older because he's injured so much. But they know how to play basketball, right? JaMychal Green, older than them, but doesn't know how to play basketball. So if you're a wing, can you defend? Can you pass? If you're a big, can you shoot? And can you play help defense? I think Gallo can do enough as a big. Enough.
You got to be able to pass if you're a Warrior big too. Like let's just be honest. Unless
Gallo does, I would assume. Think.
Unless you're JaVale McGee, who came in with a very specific role of being a lob threat for like 5 minutes here and there. They want their bigs to be guys who can make a read. Otto could make a read. JaMychal Green, not so much, And as soon as it became clear that JaMychal couldn't pass, couldn't read the game fast enough to play with the starters, that's when Tony Lambeau started getting the big minutes.
Don't ever say Tony Lambeau. That's deranged. that's deranged.
But right? Like Steve Kerr will go with literally a 6'4" guy over a 6'10" guy if he thinks that guy can make the extra pass and make a quicker decision. To me, it's like if the guy can't make quick decisions, it's almost moot. Like you're looking at this list and you see Kelly Oubre there, moot, right? Like complete. Like what is even like? I'm not going to bring him up right now, but like it's not a. Well, one, we've seen that one, but like those aren't guys who can make reads quick enough to play with the Warriors.
Yeah, we've seen that experiment before. I'm with you that I think you find out pretty quickly. I mean, same with Kuminga, Moody, Wiseman. I mean, to a lesser extent, Jordan Poole. I mean, those are the young guys, but you can kind of see like those young guys didn't really possess some of those traits either. I think the couple other things I look at, the other 2 were just you want older players. You want 27 to, I think, 37. Chris Paul right above that. So we'll do 27 to 38, whatever the arbitrary line is. I think you want older guys. And number 3 is like you want financially possible guys. I've seen people ask me about Brook Lopez, and I'm like, guys, you do realize that Brook Lopez is a really freaking good player. It's probably getting paid $20 million. $20 million a year. $20 million a year, excuse me.
Definitely in the double digits of millions. Brook Lopez is not signing a veteran minimum or a mid-level exception. Like he's going to, like you said, I would say 15, but probably 20,
Yeah. So those 3 things, Gallinari is one that's a good one that comes up. I think I'd do it. I think I would. I think he makes a lot of sense. He's an older guy. I think he wants to win. I think he wanted to do that for the Celtics last year. I think he's got the right mindset. So I think I'd take that shot, especially at a vet min.
Yeah, I mean, to be seen with his health, but he tore his ACL last, I want to say August. It was in European Cup qualifiers. So by the time the season comes around, we're talking, 15 months post-tear? It's enough time to play off an ACL, So in theory, could be okay. Looking at other names on this list right here, Jay Crowder, I don't think he's taking a veteran minimum, and I don't know if I'd really want him anyway. Dario Saric, now that's a popular name. Don't know if he'll take a veteran minimum, but I don't think he's going to get paid big money. That I think there's a possibility. Like a lot of these, like let's just call it out. A lot of these guys, we won't know day one of free agency. It's going to be a lot of, let's see if someone actually throws money at me. And if not, then I'm going to weigh different situations on a cheaper deal to see which one gives me the best chance to recoup my value or play well, right?
I mean, it just worked with Dante. It just worked with Dante, who declined his team option for 4.7, and he's probably going to get double that at least. So makes sense.
Yeah. So Saric, I think it's possible he's in that camp. I think he's number one on my list of realistic vet minimum signings. With that said, I don't even know how realistic he is, but on some level, you got to get lucky. Like Otto Porter probably should have never been on a vet minimum, but you got him, so you got to go with it. Saric, 29 years old, will be 30 next playoffs.
Perfect. Like he's not washed. Like he's not. Like I like Kevin Love. Like he's a name I have on the list, but Kevin Love is a lot older, and you could argue that the upside just isn't there. With Otto, you could say he still had upside. He just was hurt a lot. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. He was just hurt a lot. And maybe with Saric, maybe he was just underused. Maybe he just wasn't in the right system. The way that Saric plays does fit well with the Warriors. I think even more so than Gallinari. Gallinari was kind of just a pure scorer type of guy, even though he could pass a little bit. But Saric does feel like the perfect backup small ball five. It's just kind of the perfect fit. But I mean, you see here, he paid $9 million last year, undrafted free agent. Okay, so like does OKC, kind of do they take him back? They might try to win type of stuff, right? Chet's kind of fragile, stuff like that.
Yeah. On the one hand, okay, so he missed all of the year prior with an ACL tear. And then last year, he spent half the year in Phoenix before he got traded, ended up in OKC, was averaging 14 to 15 minutes in both situations. I think he was productive when he played. To your point, he can pass a little bit. He averaged over 3 assists per 36 minutes, and he rebounds. Like he plays hard. Steve Kerr would love him. Like he's a smart player. He can hit an open shot, and what he lacks in athleticism, he makes up for in just kind of fighting, right? So I could see Dario Saric sticking with the Warriors. But to your counterpoint, I don't know. OKC could just as well be like, yeah, we'll give you $10 million.
Exactly.
Because we're not paying anyone else right now, and we could use the vet for a couple of years.
16 rookies. Got 16 guys in their first of 3 years. You know what I mean? Like we might as well keep a vet. So if he's gone, I assume a lot of teams are going to be in on him too. I don't think the Warriors are going to be playing in that range, Sam. I think they're going to be more in the Kevin Love, Griffin. You keep going down that list, brother. Keep going. There is one name that's really cool there. But I'll let you lead the way with other names coming up.
All right, let's go with a couple of. What about TJ Warren?
Felt like TJ Warren was an option for the Warriors last season. Saw that name come up, but he's not a Warriors player, right? He's not. I mean, I just kind of brought up the traits that the Warriors like him. He's a bit of a chucker, just kind of a shooter. You're not in on TJ Warren, are you? You are probably more in on him than me, I think, probably, but I can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lot better than JaMychal Green. At least if you're going to be a shoot-first player, like he can put the ball in the basket. He's the type of guy who can randomly get 20 points in 15 minutes, even at this older age. But, doesn't really rebound, not a passer. I can't see Steve using him as much, so he wouldn't be high on my list. Trey Lyles is on this list. I would be shocked if he took a veteran minimum. It's not like he's signed a big contract in the past, so I'm going to skip over him, but he would have been, obviously, if you could get him, that'd be cool. Then we're on to your guy here, Yuta.
I mean, he's just the perfect player for the. I didn't know he was 29 when I looked at this. Or is that...
I thought he was more like 25, 26.
Dude,
right?
Me too. So I thought there was a little more upside there with him. Watching Nets games last couple seasons. It's not I don't watch for him. I'm watching for KD. And he couldn't shoot. First thing coming into the league, all of a sudden he's a high level 3-point shooter now from the corner. So you could argue maybe is he a real sure or not, but he's probably a perfect player for the regular season. I don't know what his market is out there. Like you said, we're probably waiting until next Wednesday to see where he is. This is, I think, kind of where you're going to rely on someone like Chris Paul and Steph and Draymond to get him there. But if I'm Utah, I think he enjoyed playing with KD. I kind of seeing him being a Phoenix Sun, but he is the kind of perfect player for the Warriors, just in that scrappy 4-ish. I don't think he's going to be a 5, like a scrappy 4, stretch 4 type of guy. Like, I think he'd be perfect.
You know who he is? He's who they wished Omri Caspi was.
It's a good one.
You thought Omri could be that like high energy small ball 4 who shoots it, but then he forgot how to shoot the ball. I would take him. You can't have enough high energy guys who you can always throw out there. Like even like Damian Lee and Juan, like limited players, obviously G League to pro players, but like they were reliable. They helped win multiple games by just changing the energy flow of the game. And what did the Warriors have this year? None of that. There was no one other than Dante. And Dante was like a regular in the rotation, so it's not really that type of thing either. It was Anthony Lamb. It was my guy, Tony Lambeau.
Right. And the vibes are a lot better with those guys. And I think that's something that Utah has that we saw D Lee and JTA have. It's just good vibes out there, man. Dudes are he's undrafted too. I think he'd be a perfect fit. It's another guy that I think would be an A+ signing, but seems like he maybe would go somewhere else, right? Because I think the Warriors, one thing I thought about as we're going down this list and we're going to talk about more players is if I'm a vet and I'm looking at this roster, I am looking at Kuminga and Moses Moody, and I am saying, like, hey, are those guys going to be on the team? Because are you guys going to bench them again in their 3rd season?
Right.
Because that's not – what if Kuminga takes a leap and all of a sudden I'm out of minutes? Am I okay with that? You know what I mean? Like, I think Kevin Love might be okay with it. I think Blake Griffin might be okay with it. But someone like Utah who's still 28, 29 years old, like, he might not be. He might say, like, hey, I'd rather play 25 minutes. I'd rather know I can get 25. Don't know if the Warriors
I know the Suns got 20 minutes for me because they have no one on the roster other than 3 dudes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough sell. I think the Warriors can sell that any front court shooter will have 15 minutes a night just because Draymond and Looney can't shoot, so someone has to be out there a little bit. But yeah, it's not the easiest sell. So you mentioned Kevin Love and Blake Griffin. Kevin Love had a chance to go to the Warriors, but he went to the Heat when he got bought out midseason. And it's unclear how much the Warriors pursued him. We never really saw their name listed. So maybe this is a, Dunleavy versus Bob thing. Maybe Bob didn't think he needed Kevin Love as much. And maybe Dunleavy, who keeps saying, I need shooting in the front court, is a little more into it. Do you think you could steal Kevin Love away? Because I kind of just think he's going to re-sign with the Heat.
Anybody that plays with the Heat is probably going to re-sign with the Heat, right? It feels like that's a perfect fit. He played pretty well in the postseason. So, when you go down these options, that's why I'm so curious, because people throw out like a Thomas Bryant, but that's not really what the Warriors need. They need someone who can pull the floor and make the angles of the court way better so you're not playing with 3 non-shooters like you just mentioned. But then you can make an argument that Chris Paul needs a guy that can actually dunk the ball. You know what I mean? Whether that be Mason Plumlee, who's on but that's a Bird guy that made a bunch of money last season. Like, is that someone that makes a lot of sense? Or are you okay playing him with someone like a Kevin Love, who's just more of a, hey, he's never going to step foot in the paint ever.
Hey, Trace Jackson Davis, we're good. He got his lob threat right there.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I saw 10-minute highlight video. Look, the post game is not going to work in the big leagues. No. The little spin move he does is not going to work, but the passing.
That's quintessential college, I thought.
Yeah, I was like, this is bullshit. Like 20-something points. I was like, this is not going to happen. But the passing and the defense, I was like, hey, this might be able to translate. Like, he's got some pretty sweet instincts, but yeah, I mean, you can't count on him, right? Like, I'm not counting on him to play more than 5 minutes. Like, he's probably in the G League all season. So
we'll see. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm curious, man. Speaking of Chris Paul, friend of the show, Mark Spears, said this on radio today. I'm going to share it right now real quick. We're kind of assuming Chris Paul is going to come off the bench. Well. Not everyone thinks that.
The lineup is just extremely small.
Yeah.
Assuming Draymond's back, it's Draymond at center. That's Wiggins at power forward. And, yeah, it could be pretty imposing offensively, but I wonder if ultimately they decide to bring Chris off the bench, which could be awkward because he's never done that in his entire Hall of Fame career. But from what I'm being told is the expectation is that he's going to start.
So the expectation is Chris Paul is going to start. What's your thoughts?
I don't believe him.
I think, yeah.
I don't believe him. That's insane. Remember the lineup we saw against Memphis where they started Steph and Clay and Jordan Poole and then Dante, along with I think it was Looney or Draymond at the 5. I forget which one it was. They played a 4-guard lineup and shocker, couldn't make a single stop for 48 minutes that game. I would be shocked if Chris Paul is starting, and if he is starting, he's probably only going to play the first 4 or 5 minutes before he sits again, and then I'd be curious to see who's closing. That's probably more important. But come on, do you believe that? Talk some sense into me.
I think this is going to be a bigger topic than we're giving it credit for. I think Chris Paul has a lot of pride. I think he's one of the greatest point guards of all time. And while I think the Warriors want him to come off the bench, I don't think they're starting day one by being like, to the bench. I think they're going to try to warm him to the idea. For this, let me take it back a step here. I think basketball-wise, the fit makes sense. The question is, will they buy in and be on the same page? And that's where Steve Kerr has to do his best Kerring, in my opinion. Steve Kerr has to convince Chris Paul to come off the bench. I think he's going to, honestly. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as, I think there's going to be some finessing. That's why they're not saying he's coming off the bench right now. You saw Steph and Clay's quotes. All they're doing is talking about how amazing it's going to be to play with a dude that good. They're trying to make him feel good, trying to make him feel welcome. So when the inevitable, we want you to buy into a lesser role, it's not going to be the Chris Paul show. It's going to be you. You buying in and you being more of a 25-minute a game guy, then he's comfortable with it. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that's risky. And bring up Candace Soto's comment here from the YouTube comment section. I love this one because I was just gonna say that. She says, "Please tell me they talked about this before the damn trade." I would assume they talked about this before the trade actually materialized. It would be shocking to me that this happened, and then a month later, Steph and Steve are coming to Chris Paul and saying, might be a good idea to come off the bench. We've never brought it up before. I mean, that would be idiotic. Absolutely idiotic. So I think the Russell Westbrook, and this doesn't bode well for the Warriors, but Russell Westbrook because it does remind me of that situation where LeBron and the team kind of said, hey, we need a guy that can help the bench.
Let's stagger this, yeah.
Exactly, and they tried it. Now, Chris Paul is a much smarter player than Russ, but they're kind of the same levels of pride. All these kind of top level Hall of Fame guards are. And is Chris Paul going to be kind of the same with Russ, where it's like, hey, what are we doing here, right? If this starts off disastrously, what are we doing here? Here's what I was
going to say. Do I think they discussed it beforehand? Yeah, I think internally, Steve Kerr told the coaching staff, I can get him to buy in. And that's why I say, this is why I think we all agree Kerr's one of his strongest attributes is EQ, ability to connect with people and get them to buy in. He got Andre Iguodala, who at that time was one of the best wings in the league, to accept coming off the bench. CP3 is obviously not at his prime at any state, but he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He does have an ego. He does have pride. Steve's probably told management, I will get him to come around on this over time. And to your point, it is June 27th. They don't need him. They're just trying to make him feel good right now. You need him coming up. You need him bought into that role when camp comes. You don't need to rub it in his nose just yet. I think it's going to be a finesse play to get him there.
That's risk. I don't know if that's a good thing. I felt like they probably should have talked about this with him before it happened. They're walking a tightrope here because we're not even talking about logistically. It's obvious, I think, that both of us don't think that's a great starting or closing lineup, and maybe it is.
I think it can close. I'm not concerned about closing. Maybe not every game. Oh, dude, he can.
But you're running a matchup closing unit with Chris Paul, so sometimes he's going to close, sometimes he's not. And then now you're talking about like, so is Chris Paul going to be the one handling the ball, or is it Steph? Because that's not going to work if it's Chris Paul a lot of the times. So it's all things that
as long as it's not Draymond, as long as it's not Draymond standing at the top of the key pointing.
Yeah. But I don't. It's a lot of questions that I think we don't know, which is what going to make this season freaking unbelievable. Like, it's going to be unbelievable because this is insane. It's insane. It's at the risk of this blowing back on them off the court and on the court, I think, is pretty high. But high. You do agree with me. The risk is interpersonal. It's not talent. Like, from a talent perspective, Chris Paul Chris Paul will give you more wins than Jordan Poole would give you. But I'm talking about closing. We'll see.
Sure.
Yeah. But you're right. Like, off the bench, all that stuff, objectively, will be better.
He does more winning things than Jordan Poole.
Yeah. If I want GP2 instead in a closing lineup, right? Like, what if I want to close with GP2 instead? What happens with Chris Paul? Does he fucking lose his shit on the bench? Is that a story? It's like a LeBron team, right? It's just like a LeBron team. What happens when this guy is going to sit on the bench, right? Remember when they sat Russ? Talked about it for like 2 months.
Yeah.
What happens now when it happens with the Warriors? So,
yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. They're like, all I'm saying is, I think they're trying to finesse him there. I think Steph's quotes, you brought up the comments he made. Let me bring them up right now. I think they're kind of telling just to the way he interacts. He's saying, he's talking about every team CP's been on gets better. That's the most consistent thing about him, who he is and what he brings to the team. Everyone's going on about age, but it's on us to put it all together and figure out how the pieces work. But we're trying to win, and CP will do that. I mean, to me, it just sounds like he knows he's going to have to kind of get CP there. Even if CP says he's cool with it, which I'm sure he did. It's different doing. And to me, this is just about like getting, don't rub it in his face, just try to like get him to accept it. I would expect a lot of Steve Kerr praising Chris Paul for, some mundane thing being the key to winning a game all season, the same way he always did with Andre Iguodala. Those little things to try to, because he knows he doesn't have to praise Steph. Those little things to try to keep guys bought in who maybe wish they had bigger roles.
He did that with Poole. Remember, He was, they did that with Poole, where it was just like he had a game where he had 12 assists or something. They're like, it's the greatest Poole game we've ever seen. It's like, well, no, I just watched him play in the postseason, win a couple games for the Warriors. I mean, those might be better games. Agree. Can you pull that quote back up before we kind of get away from there? Because this one line fascinated me. And I think we're kind of seeing the evolution of Steph. The last line there, he says, it's just you get to know someone, build a friendship. He's talking about Jordan Poole. Build a bond. It's tough to see him go. And the last line he says, but, we're trying to win next year. And Chris Paul can help us do that. Thought that was fascinating. He probably didn't mean anything by it. But if I were to dive too deeply into something, to me, that feels like I think I'm not going to deal with that bullshit anymore. And let's just go get a vet. And hey, look, Steph and Chris might not be best friends, but I know what Chris can do. I think I can get Chris bought in. He's going to be better for us this year. And that's all I give a shit about. I think that's what Steph is saying. I don't think he dislikes Jordan Poole. I think he just doesn't want to deal with him anymore. Not when he's trying to win a championship, man. Like, that's more important right now.
Man, you get a little older. Your patience wears a little thinner. You got a little less time for the BS.
I think so.
I'm sure the tone wasn't aggressive. I'm sure it was just kind of an offhanded statement, but it is kind of the, look, man, I like you. I don't have 4 years to wait for you to grow up, you know? And that's kind of how it feels with a lot of the young guys. You know, Moses Moody will be on the team next year, and he's kind of displayed the maturity and the toughness that is needed to survive on a team trying to compete. You know, he didn't play all year, and it didn't destroy him. He fought through it and actually was really good in the playoffs. Like, I think he should be playing 15, 20 minutes a game next year, right?
Yeah.
Kuminga, I mean, we know they shopped him. We know he's kind of on, I don't want to say he's on thin ice, but it's kind of like either you take a step or you might go the route of Wiseman at the trade deadline.
I know. I also think, because I saw, I've been seeing this stuff come up where people pop up, all these young guys that, didn't work out and didn't have enough time and there's no fair chance for them. Let's see how they do on other teams. Let's see what happens with Patrick Baldwin Jr. Let's see what happens with Ryan Rollins. Let's see what happens with James Wiseman. Let's see what happens with Jordan Poole. Let's see what happens with Jordan Poole and the Wizards. We know he's going to score 24 points a game, but is he going to win?
Up.
Yeah, right.
My guy's getting 28.
Yeah, exactly. But in 3 years, is
26 shots.
Is he kind of just like a Bradley Beal, or is he a winning player, right? Or is he more of a Damian Lillard, who, I mean, he's a winning player.
Sure.
So, of all these guys, it's not like the Warriors have traded someone that has made them regret anything. And maybe you can argue that Kuminga's that guy that will make him regret it, but Kuminga's still on the team. He's still on the team for now. So,
and he could take a step this year. Like my whole thing on Kuminga is I actually thought he had a very positive regular season, and then just huge regression in the playoffs and went the complete opposite way. And that leaves like a terrible taste in your mouth. But at the same time, if you can't play in the playoffs, I mean, it's hard to justify keeping a project who you can't throw out there for playoff minutes, So he's got to get a lot better really quick because, as you said, short window. They literally traded a 24-year-old for a 38-year-old.
Oh my God.
Like they're all in. They have the highest luxury tax in the league right now. They're not a team who's playing for 4 years down the road. They traded Wiseman. We'll see.
Bring Andre back?
Oh God, why? He's what?
Another
One more
38-year-old?
Dude, he'll be 40 next year. Just another year of him saying, I want to go out on a high note, playing one game and then being out for 2 months.
That was insane. I know. I saw his name on the rundown here. You brought him up, so I mean,
he's technically a free agent.
Thought that was funny. I mean, Taj Gibson, Robin Lopez. Thought those were funny names too. I mean, those guys are beyond washed. Danny Green, Warriors fans gonna love that. Washed.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't think they need that level of veteran. I think they, like you said, 28, 31, 33. Let's stick there. We already got our one 38-year-old.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out with some news coming out in a couple of days. I'm sure of it. John Collins already got traded, so I'm sure a bunch of shit will happen here coming up. So we'll see.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna be back on Thursday night, everyone. Appreciate you.